Welcome to the next episode in the Look Over My Shoulder series. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying the Monday morning updates and the bonus phone calls and the frequently asked questions group phone call. Things are moving on this end, and fortunately, we've had some very good things pop up recently that looks as though we're going to be starting making some pretty interesting offers. And actually, we're going to make some offers on this call as well right now. So, episode number 4. We're into this about 2 months, and it's now time to get to work. We've been kicking around a couple of ideas. We've now got to start making some offers. As I always say in all of my classes, if you're not making offers, this is nothing more than an expensive hobby. And on the Monday morning videos, what you're going to see in the second quarter, after about 3 months of the Monday morning videos, you're going to start getting more in-depth analysis into making offers, so that you know every time you get a Monday morning phone call, email, we're going to be telling you, you got to start making offers. Don't have to be great offers, don't have to be anything, you just got to get in the game. And I'm going to show you today how I got in the game since we last spoke, things that we are moving ahead on, things that worked, things that didn't work, but it's now time to get to work. So one of the things that I want to catch up on, let's talk about where we were last week and where we are this week. We're going to follow up on the conversation with Matt Amos. Some very interesting things have occurred since the last time we spoke, since the last time I spoke to Matt. And this is going to be a great insight into what you need to do in order to make educated, smart, acceptable offers. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take you through a couple of offers right now that I'm drafting that are going to be going out the door as soon as we're done these videos, and we're going to let you know in subsequent episodes how we did on those offers, and hopefully one of them will be accepted, negotiated. We start doing the purchase and sale contract, going through the whole entire process, and get one of these deals done. One of these deals I'm very excited about. It's just a beautiful property, and it's one of those properties that I wouldn't mind owning myself. Then the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to try to schedule a call that with the beautiful magic of technology with one of my lending sources, so that we can talk about, okay, what are we going to do about this deal? How can we get this deal financed? What's the way that we should structure these deals? What type of terms should we be putting into our analysis in order to figure out our cash and cash return? All those types of discussions we're going to be putting into this this conversation. And then finally, we're going to catch back up on the South Carolina brokers. So I am actively making offers on a bunch of deals, but I'm trying to open up the South Carolina market for myself. And as you recall, I showed you a technique that I use on LoopNet in order to blast out to a bunch of brokers. It didn't work. I got very, very poor response. That could mean a whole host of different things, one of which is that the brokers being listed on the LoopNet listing are not really multifamily brokers. Sometimes brokers will just throw their name up on LoopNet in the hopes that they're like a blind squirrel. They catch a nut every once in a while. So what we really want to be dealing with are those brokers who are actively doing multifamily deals in that marketplace, and I'm going to show you how to do that on this episode. So let's move on and start talking about the follow-up to our conversation with Matt Amos. Now, you know I love Matt. You heard me on the phone with Matt. Great guy. He's a good friend. We've done business. But I'm always going to keep reminding you folks, don't believe a word anything anyone tells you. Confirm everything. Okay, because remember what we talked about on the phone call with Matt. The thing that Matt said was that the beauty of this off-market deal and the reason why they're paying a premium on it is because it is coming out of the low-income housing tax credit program. And when it comes out of the low-income housing tax credit program, then what happens is I can start going up on the market rents, and this property really starts to take off. But that is provided that what they are telling me is accurate. So let me tell you and show you some of the things that I did just to kind of play Mr. Investigator. Because what I realized was I'm not an expert at low-income housing tax credits, the LIHTC programs. I better start to find out more as we go through. So that's kind of what happened over the last week. And I'm going to jump on to another screen right now so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, if you recall, we took a look at the some of the analysis on this property, some of the things that the brokers gave us, and this is one of the pages that they identified. Now, what I'm going to show for you here is this section where it says end of initial tax credit compliance period. And as you can see, phase 1, phase 2, they ended in 2009. Now, if you read a little bit further, you see it says years of additional restrictions, 15. And the final year of restrictions of 2024. All right, well, you know what? We didn't really give that a whole lot of credibility or credence when we looked at it. And what we should have said is, wait a minute. According to this, the initial tax credit compliance period is already over with. And we're now moving into our next round of restrictions. But we didn't know enough about LIHTC properties to know that. So, and why did we think, besides the fact that we had the conversation with Matt and he said that the beautiful thing about this property is it's coming off of the qualified component of the LIHTC, and therefore we could start going up in the rents. But if you recall, let me scroll down here for just a second. Here's the unit mix. And as you can see, if you look here under year 1 rents, like for instance some of the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, the year 1 rents, meaning rents when we take it over, are right now at $715. But year 2 rents, look what happens in year 2, $867. And then you think, okay, well that's because I can come off the tax credit program, right? That means I don't have any more restrictions, right? And even if you look down the bottom of the page here where it says year 2 rents reflect the post-qualified contract rents we think the market will bear. So what even the broker is telling us that in the second year you can take this property to market. Okay, just what we thought. The first part that I just showed you kind of contradicts what everybody has said. It also contradicts what is written here in the broker's analysis. Now I'm thinking that these brokers have got to know what they're talking about. This is a very specific type of property. You've got to be an expert on this property. So I decided to protect myself and go to the experts. So what I ended up doing was contacting the Ohio Housing Finance Agency because I figured they are the people that I'm going to be dealing with on a regular basis. If I buy this property, I'm going to have to be in compliance with what they have to say, and I might as well get to know them now. And besides that, I'm also looking at another LIHTC property in Ohio. Hey, let's get to know these people. So you come here to the programs section, you click on the compliance section for different programs, and as you can see, you've got the whole contact list right here. And as you can see, here's the director of the Office of Program Compliance, Brian Carnahan. I picked up the phone and I called Brian, and he answered his phone, and I had a great conversation with him, and he educated me so much on the LIHTC program in Ohio and how it works. And I ended up telling him which property I was looking at. Brian is an attorney himself running the office. I told him which property I was looking at, and he was able to go right online and automatically pull up the documents to show that this property is not going to come out of the compliance, come out of the program anytime soon. And I said, are you sure, Brian? Because according to the broker, this is going to be taken out of the program in the next year or two. I've got documents here, I've got marketing material. And he goes, unless there's something I'm missing, and I don't think I am because I run the office, he goes, this document proves that it's got another 15 years to go. And I say, is there any way you can send me that document? And sure enough, he did. And here it is, folks. What this is a deed restriction. It's a restrictive covenant to the property. That means that when the property first gets created, there are certain restrictions put on the ownership of that property. And those restrictions get registered at the Registry of Deeds, or whatever they call it in Ohio, so that the whole world can see exactly what this property can and cannot do. It's kind of like, the old example of, somebody wills their land to the state or the city to build a school, but it can only be used as a school. And if ever down the road they decide to, turn the school into, housing for the elderly, they've got problems with that deed restriction. So as you can see, I've pulled up the actual page that states what it is that we're looking for, and what you're looking at here is down here under number 7. It says this section is intended to make enforceable the extended use commitment, if any, which the owner represented to the agency in its application, and which may have increased the rating of the project during the competitive review process. And what it says is the owner represents, warrants, and covenants throughout the term of this agreement that it will waive its right to terminate the Section 42 low-income housing restriction, and it will extend these restrictions for an additional 15 years. Okay, there it is right there. Now, I asked Brian, I said, why would an owner do that? Why wouldn't he want to get this property back after 15 years and bring it to market and make it more attractive to a new buyer? And he said, because when they built these things, they didn't really care about what was happening 15 years down the road. That they knew that was going to be somebody else's problem. What they were doing at the inception was to sell as many tax credits for as much value as possible, and that's what they did here. When at the day that they started signing up this property as a low-income housing tax credit, they were given options, and the government said, hey, if you agree to waive the 15 years and let it go for another 15 years, we'll give you even more. And so the developer is sitting there thinking to himself, hey, might as well take it. It's no skin off our teeth. We're not going to be around 15 years from now. Sure, we'll waive that the right to terminate, and that's where the proof is. Now, can this be modified? Yeah, it absolutely can be modified, but chances are that it isn't. So what does that mean when it relates to this particular deal? What it means is that in year 2, those rents are not going to that level that the broker identified on his proposal. So this property will not have this great big payday that we were all hoping for. So what do you do now? Do you take all that time you just spent and consider it wasted, consider it a learned experience, and you're not moving forward on any deals? I say no. And that's what we're going to show you right now, how I drafted the letter of intent in order to protect ourselves. All right, so for those of you that have worked with me in the past, if you've purchased any of my courses, you'll know that I provide 2 different forms of a letter of intent. I use a short form and a long form. This one right here happens to be the short form. The long form LOI is actually, I'll show you an example of the long form LOI. Actually, I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Here's an example of the long form LOI. As you can see, it's much more in-depth. It covers many more topics, and there's a strategy behind using one versus the other. Okay, I'm not going to get into strategy right now. Come to my class. I will show you exactly how to do it. But the short form letter of intent is what we're going to use today. Now, as you can see, I've changed the name of the property. I've done my best here to keep this property under wraps, just because I'm under a confidentiality agreement and I don't want to breach that. So here is the short form LOI. As you can see, it's nothing more than 2 pages. It's got 8 paragraphs. It's got 8 points of discussion with the broker. Or the seller, actually. what you try to do is you keep it as broad as you possibly can, because that's going to open up the avenues for discussion. What it's also going to do is it's going to enable you to get out a lot of offers in a short period of time. The long form LOI takes a little bit more to negotiate, takes a little bit more strategy. You have to be ready to roll if the client accepts it, because once you get a long form LOI accepted, there's nothing much more to talk about. With a short form, we still have a lot more to talk about. We still have a lot more to negotiate. So here's how it works. As you can see, I've set this up in a blank document, and it has to be written like a letter. It's a letter of intent. Do not put up in the top thing big bold letters, letter of intent. That looks like you just got out of a boot camp. Make it look like a letter you would send it to your boss. I've got Matt's name and address up top there, letter of intent, and I clearly state what it's for. I name the property and the address. Do a nice little introduction there telling who I am and why I'm writing. Now, what I do in my case is I state that it's for my client's benefit. Now, as an attorney, I have that privilege of allowing my clients to hide behind me. I can shield their names. I can provide them with anonymity, because a lot of times my clients don't want to know who's out there. So I don't want them to know who's bidding on the property. So that's why my letters of intent say for which my clients will be willing to acquire the property. If you're not an attorney, you really don't have that ability, because technically that is a very accurate statement. I'm not buying this on my behalf. I'm buying this on behalf of, or making this offer on behalf of my clients. You could say the same thing, but you don't have that privilege of confidentiality. So what I do is I state the purchase price, and as you can see here, we're going to stick to that $13 million. Okay, we're going to stick to the number that the broker originally asked for, because he said it's such a great deal coming off of a tax credit program. It should command a higher, it should command a premium of a price. Not that much of a premium. The numbers are still fantastic, but $13 million, we'll give it to him. Earnest money deposit of 1%, $130,000 we put on here. Down payment would be 20% of the purchase price less the earnest money, giving me a first mortgage of about $10 million. All right. Now, later on this conversation, we're going to talk about how do you finance something like this. What are your options when you look at an opportunity like this? And because that's where your mind, you're playing chess right now. You're putting the pieces in the right spots so that nobody's going to checkmate you. And one of the things we do need to talk about is the financing of the deal. Next thing we talk about is the inspection period. Now, in this particular case, I asked for 45 days because I'm going to know it's going to take me a little bit longer. It's a good-sized property, but then there's all of that other stuff that we need to do the inspection on. All of that stuff regarding LITICs, regarding the documents from the government. We need to do incredible due diligence on that. It's a little outside of our norm, but we're going to, so that's why we're requiring a little bit more time. But once we say it's okay, once we say this is a good deal, we're going to move very quickly through the contract. That's where we're kind of giving it up to the guy. Typically, you'll see a period be a 30, 60, 90. Here I'm doing 45, 60, and that'll give you an idea of how it works. Now, the earnest money deposit, within 5 days after we sign the purchase and sale agreement, we have to write a check for the earnest money deposit of $130,000. Now, that is not after we sign this letter of intent. That's after we've negotiated a purchase and sale contract, which we can still get out of if we don't want to do it. And so we can really postpone that check writing period for a little bit longer than usual. Then what's going to happen is both parties are going to agree to enter into a purchase and sale agreement. Now, here is where I've protected myself. And this is what you should do if ever you get yourself into a situation where you're not quite sure what's going on. This is what you want to do. Note that the last paragraph, last section of that paragraph 4 says both parties understand that this letter of intent is being made with the understanding that any restrictive covenants regarding the tax credit compliance period will terminate within 24 months of the closing. Huh. What do you know? What I did is I brought it to the broker's attention in the letter of intent that I am making this offer because of this, because I was led to believe from your material that that's what's going to happen. Right away, he'll be able to tell me if that's not the case. And if that's not the case, I don't want it for $13 million. We'll talk about a lower price, but he's going to have to go back and revise his numbers because his numbers are going to be wrong. Brokerage fees are going to be paid by the seller. Closing date will be on or before 60 days after the effective date. Should financing constraints dictate additional time, I always ask for an additional 30 days. So in this particular case, we've got a 45 day inspection, 60-day close, but I can give myself another 30. So essentially, this is a 90-day contract, just like a 30, 60, 90 would be, but I've structured it this way. Based upon conversations with the broker, based upon knowing what my needs are, and that's why I've drafted it this way. And then finally, I'll skip over down to the financing period. It's just a, we're going to put a contingency in there. I got 45 days to see if I can get financing for this deal. So really, during the inspection period, I'm also going to be doing the financing. And a property of this caliber, of this quality, that's okay. You can do that, and you can get approval. But that's that's kind of the way I've decided to structure this deal. And then, as you can see, all I do down here at the bottom is I sign it, and I put an acknowledged and agreed to by the seller. Seller says, okay, yeah, this is good, or he's going to come back and he's going to mark it up. And then what I do, just to keep it all nice and neat, is I will come over here, I will copy everything. I'll come down here, I'll put it on my company letterhead. And I like the font that I use for my letterhead. And now I'm going to go and clean it all up. So let me do this and I'll show you exactly what it looks like when it's done. Then what you can see I do is I take it and I copy and paste it right onto my electronic stationery. And before I send it, watch what I do is I'm always going to save it as, we'll do XYZ property, and I spelled that incorrectly, but that's fine. But then you're going to save it as a PDF. Save. And then by doing that, you can ship it off to the broker, and he's going to get a copy of it electronically, and it's going to have everything on there, and he cannot modify the terms. You can forward it on to his seller. Everything is nice and neat, and boom, you're done. The analysis obviously took a lot longer. Finding the deal obviously takes the longest time, but putting together a letter of intent should take 10 minutes tops. You'll get very, very good at this, and you'll get to the point where you can do this in no time flat. So we're going to go through one more offer in just a moment, and then we're going to talk about some of the South Carolina deals. Hey everybody, this is another deal that I received in, off-market deal. It's the seller is going to have to sell the property in about 6 months. So in my conversations with the broker, I am getting first crack at looking at this deal. We're going to put together some numbers. We're going to start a dialogue with the broker. This is one that could take months before anything happens. It's probably going to be one of those types of deals that you have to get out there and build a relationship with the seller in order for it to work. But let me tell you something, folks. Because it's off market and it's kind of a clandestine deal, not clandestine in a nefarious way, but I just have to keep it under wraps. I can't show you any pictures of it, but I can tell you that this is a beautiful, beautiful property. one that has never been up on the market before. The builder is actually the owner. His 15-year mortgage is coming due in 6 months. He's older. He's going to sell. He's going to get out. And so I'm going to start the ball rolling on making this deal happen. That's how things work. It could be months before you get any type of traction on any deals that you're looking at. So the thing I want to identify for you here is the problem that we're talking about a over $10 million deal. Okay, and this is the extent of the financials that I have. I mean, typically you'd get a Yardi management report, a rent manager management report, somebody that really tracks the numbers. If you look at my properties and you took a look at all that we do to keep track of our financials, our numbers are beautiful. This particular income and expense statement for to make a deal on a property that's over $10 million is pretty weak. Look at the time period. That's the first thing you need to look at with an income and expense statement. This is only for a 3-month period. And folks, this is the most recent period. I have financials dating back to 2008, and then they drop off. Where's 9? Where's 10? Where's 11? Where is the rest of 12? Right now, I'm talking to you coming from 2013. We should have a year end for 2013. This is the extent of the information I have on this particular property from the broker, from the seller, who is a builder, not a property manager, so to speak. Of the builders and property owners, apartment owners have a totally different mindset as to how these deals get done, which is going to make this one particularly challenging. But I just wanted to show you that this is what I've got. I've got the income, I've got these expenses, I've got them over a 3-month period. It's interesting that on a $10 million property, look at the extent of the, well, let me see if, the extent of the taxes is about $7,900. Well, on a $10 million property, you annualize that, and you're looking at about $32,000 on a $10 million property. Nah, it doesn't work that way. So obviously I'm going to have to get some updated numbers on this particular deal. So let me show you what I did, just so you can understand all the steps involved and what I'm going to have to do to get this offer out the door. Okay, here is the cash flow analyzer, and as you can see, what I've done is I've put in the numbers. Look at this section right here under the contract purchase price. I'm leaving it blank. I don't know. We haven't really talked price yet. I know that what it should come close to commanding just by looking at sales comps, but I don't know, based upon the financials of this property, what the actual purchase price or the offer price should be. So I leave that particular section blank, and then what I do is I come down and as you can see, I put in all of the income information. It's about a 12.2% vacancy. It's actually less than that, but I'm taking into consideration concessions and bad debt. So that's why it's up to about 12.2. That's a real number. And what actually happens is, if you look up here under the effective rental income of 1.69 or 1.7 million, that is actually what the annualized number would be. So I am right on line. That's based upon the rent roll that I looked at, not that income and expense statement that I just showed you. So I really took the time to build this out. And then under the expenses, I went and I added in all of the, and then under the expenses, I went and added in all of the charges annualized. And as you can see, the percentage of revenue, the expense ratio came out to be about 42.4%. It's a beautiful property. It's very well maintained. It's tenant paid. It's in a low cost state. But I still think that 42% is a little low. And as I go through the process and I do a full complete due diligence, I'm expecting my expense ratio to creep up closer to 50%. I mean, all those things I just said are fantastic, but it's still a 15-year-old property. And there are probably some capital expenditure numbers which obviously fall below the line, but even repairs and maintenance could start to creep up. And that's why I think that the 42% expense ratio, based upon what they showed, is a little light. Remember, I'm extrapolating on a 3-month window. Who knows what could have been going on during that 3-month window. So that is part of the problem I'm having with these numbers. It will all be rectified once I start my due diligence, or the seller decides to start giving me some real numbers. So I've got the income in there. I've got the expenses in there. If we take a look at the cash flow analysis, you'll see it's pretty meaningless. I mean, it tells me what my NOI is of about $1 million. Projected sales price of 12 million. Okay, that's fine, but that's based upon, that's actually pretty good. That tells me, based upon the cap rate in the marketplace and the income and expense numbers, the NOI that we have, the actual projected sales price should be about 12.6. Now, that is based upon me putting in, and I'll show you right over here, me putting in a cap rate of 8%. Now that's probably pretty high. This property might be a 7% cap. It's a nice asset. So let's take a look at what happens to my cash flow analysis when I reduce the cap rate to 7 points. Now it looks like the projected sales price is closer to $14.5 million. Okay, you know what? That's pretty good. But let's see what using the this software, I'm going to try to figure out what the price should be. So we're going to go over to the goal section, and we're going to answer a couple of questions. If we need to solve for the offer price, a cash and cash where the goal is 20% by year 5, let's see what the seek answer is. 11.7 million compared to the existing input of 10. So 11,776. I go back to the input data and I put in 11,776, 1, 2, 3. Let's go back to the cash flow analysis. How does that look? Okay, so look at this. This projected sales price remains the same at 14. Now that's because I'm basing the projected sales price on the valuation using the existing cap rate and the existing net operating income, not using the current purchase price. So if I go in and I buy this thing at 11.75 million, based upon the valuation at a 7 cap, we're talking about a 14.5 million. That's a nice payday. So that kind of tells you, the seller may come back and say, I want 14.5 million for it, and I'm coming in at, so I'm going to offer, 11.7 is the number that comes in where I can hit 20%. But if I just move that up to 12 million, then it looks like I'm, a much better offer than 11.75 just by going up to the 12 million. Let's see what happens to my numbers. And I go to my cash flow analysis. See, the 14 doesn't change, but I'm still dealing with a 1.85 debt coverage ratio. I'm still looking at a 15% and 15.5% cash on cash return on essentially an A- class property. This is pretty good. I like this deal at that 12 million. So I'm going to make an offer at 12 million. So I'm going to pause here. We're going to jump on over to the letter of intent, and you'll see how I do it. So as you can recall, I'm dealing with Matt again, and I'm going to leave the name of the property blank because, for clandestine purposes, not really. But what happened this time? Now I'm just changing the offer to 12 million. Okay, so when I change that means my earnest money deposit is going to be 120,000, and that means that an 80% valuation, my mortgage is going to be 960,000, 9 million. Let's try this again. 600,000. Make sure they all line up. Plus, and we're at the down payment of 280, and that's it. In this particular case, let's change some things around just so that you can see a different way to do things. 30 days, 30. Earnest money deposit is going to be 120. 5 days purchase and sale. We're going to keep all of that the same. Brokerage closing date will be, let's say, 90 days from the effective issue, and I'm still going to give myself another 30 days. And the financing, we're going to move this up to 60. So this is a more standard offer than the one that we did before. But you know what, folks? I'm done. I'm ready to send out another offer. How long did that take me? Well, you didn't see the behind the scenes, but as far as writing up the offer, it took no time at all. And that's the way it should work for you. So with that being said, we're going to pause on this one, and you're going to see the next video in just a second. Okay, so if you recall at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that the strategies that I had taken in South Carolina were not working. We tried to do a blast email to brokers in South Carolina so I could start to get an activity going. I think I got 1 or 2 people to respond after sending out 20. So I decided to I'm definitely not giving up on South Carolina. Are you kidding me? I'm sitting here in the cold New England winter. I can't wait to get out of here. So I am not going to give up on South Carolina. I am going to go after them as much as I possibly can. So I'm going to try a different strategy. And this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to start a new search. And I'm going to look for multifamily in South Carolina. I'm going to do a search, and that's all I'm looking for. I'm not even discussing the type of property. I'm just looking for brokers that have listings up here on in South Carolina. I want to work with those guys. So here's what we do. How many do we have? We've got 164. Let's sort it out just to be on the safe side. Now, one of the things I've realized is that if you've watched this video so far, you've seen me throw about big numbers like $12 million and $13 million deals. Please don't think like, oh, well, this program is for those types of programs, those size properties. It isn't. It's for any type of multifamily. So don't look at it and think, oh, I'll never be like that. You know what? I was there one day too. So you absolutely can be like that. Even if it isn't your objective, these videos will show you the process for any size multifamily, and that's the most important part. So let's go units low to high, premium subscriber only. Fine. All right. Let's take a look at this one and watch what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do this all in the video. All I'm going to do, Miles Nason, click contact listing broker. I'm looking forward to hearing from Miles Nason and seeing what he has to say. So then we go back to the search results. And I go down to these people right in place. This is a Sperry Van Ness deal. So I want to speak to a Sperry Van Ness deal broker who's doing deals in South Carolina. Back to search results. And I'm going to do this all the way through until one of two things happens. Either I get to the bottom, or LoopNet says you've maxed out on your number of broker contacts for the day, come back later. And that probably is going to happen first. They do kick you out. They're preventive of spam. I think if you're a premium member, you do get a little bit more multifamily investment opportunity. Yep, let's take a look at it. 62 units, click on that one. So that's all I'm going to do, folks. So in 2 weeks on our next look over my shoulder video, I'll let you know how the results are, and hopefully they're going to be a little bit better than the last one. I already spoke to that gentleman, as you all know. I already spoke to that gentleman. Hyde Park. We're going to try that. We have 9 pages to go through. So that is my plan, and hope it works, and you will all find out whether it does or not. But like I said, keep looking over my shoulder. We're buying a property this year. And that's going to be it for this week's Look Over My Shoulder video. I hope this has been very helpful to you. We've got some offers out the door. We're generating a lot more activity with other brokers. It just takes action, folks. You've got to get out there and just do this type of stuff on a regular basis. You know, if you're sitting in front of a TV late at night and you're not doing this, why not? You know, before you know it, you're going to be 65 years old and you're not going to have anything to show for it. And that was always what terrified me. So pick up the phone, take an hour a day, start doing this, and before you know it, this will become your job, and you'll be able to do it during the day like I do, and practice the piano at night for that 1 hour. So, folks, great chatting with you, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks.